Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, another Tuesday night, another set. That's my fault. Another set of college football playoff rankings. And Dill, I think there are some storylines right off the bat that we got to talk about. Now, before we do get into it, an open invitation to let it fly in the chat. And we had Dill last Tuesday night, an absolute blast, taking all the different question marks that you guys had. So get it going down there. I think we got to talk about one of the biggest storylines. That is Miami slowly working their way up, Dill, jumping Vanderbilt. And this is my biggest takeaway. If I'm a Miami Hurricane fan, is that maybe it's a little bit more in my control. Like, well, what did the committee just tell us? That, hey, if you continue to look the part, if you look like a college football playoff team that we just can't keep out of the playoffs, maybe you got a chance to get into that top 12. Now, they still have to jump BYU. They still have to jump Utah. I'll kick it to you first. Biggest surprises that you have from these fresh set of rankings.
And that is the storyline, but I'm a little surprised, frankly, that one of those Big 12 teams didn't kind of get leapfrogged by Miami. And it would have been Utah because BYU after that performance. And again, a big win against TCU. It doesn't necessarily matter a ton to me. I don't think TCU is a particularly good team.
Yeah.
But it'd be hard to knock BYU down, if you will. I'm a little surprised Miami didn't jump Utah because a 2-loss Utah versus a 2-loss Miami, I don't really see a world that Utah is getting the nod over a 2-loss.
Yeah, and many of y'all know my take on this. Number one, Miami has at times really looked like a college football playoff team. They're also the only team that actually has a bona fide playoff win. Like, look at BYU and look at Utah and look at Vanderbilt. None of those teams that are, quote, in the hunt have that marquee win over a playoff team that is currently set to be in the field. Miami does. And although they have 2 losses that are certainly not pretty, they still have that win. But again, my biggest, and I would agree with that, Miami should be over Utah. I think I do agree with that. My biggest takeaway, though, and if I'm a Miami Hurricane fan, my biggest takeaway is it's if we continue to dominate, maybe the committee will continue to raise this up.
But I don't think these rankings exactly bear that out. And
they just jumped Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt didn't do anything wrong. They jumped. I promise you that win, if it would have been a 7-point win against NC State, I don't think they jumped Vanderbilt. I think they jumped Vanderbilt because they made a statement. You look at that game, man. Miami outgained them 500 and change to 149 total yards. That was domination. That was
I guess the issue, though, I don't disagree with you, but I feel like we're going to get ourselves into that classic conference championship kind of deal where you're going to have 2 Big 12 teams. If Utah loses that, are they going to get punished for being in a conference championship? That's probably going to be the question. Or is BYU
would be,
for being in a conference championship? Like, those 2 teams are the ones who are kind of in line for it. That's always going to be the debate. And I think if Miami can't get above those teams in the next couple weeks, I think they don't exactly control their own destiny.
No, and I'm not saying they do, but I think my biggest takeaway was that they gave you the nod over Vanderbilt because of how it looked. So what happens if you do it once again on the road against Virginia Tech? And then you go do it on the road against Pitt, who they had in the top 25 less than a week ago. Like, I guess what I'm saying is that the committee's telling us it matters how these games looked, which is not all that much of a surprise because they told us that back in early November when they had Miami, I believe, at 18 and they had Notre Dame at 10. They were telling us, hey, even though Notre Dame has the head-to-head, Notre Dame's looked like the better team in October. That's why we're going to give Notre Dame the nod by that kind of margin. If I'm Miami, I'm saying, hey, it's not enough to win. We ain't pulling the starters. We ain't pulling the starters in the fourth quarter. We're trying to make statements in back-to-back weeks and at least give us the best possible chance.
Are you a little bit surprised that Alabama fell behind Notre Dame? Because I think I kind of am, frankly.
Am I surprised that Alabama fell behind? Yeah, and I probably don't. I didn't even think about that, to be honest with you.
I think it puts Alabama in not the greatest situation, potentially, to be very honest.
And it's frustrating, Dill, because it's here goes the committee again valuing, maybe an uglier loss to Florida State as opposed to Alabama ran a gauntlet. And like Alabama has a win against Georgia. That might be the most impressive win that we've seen in all of college football. And I'm not saying Notre Dame's a bad team. Like, I think Notre Dame is a playoff team, and I'm not necessarily arguing for them not to be in the playoffs, but where's that marquee win for Notre Dame? I mean, USC is an impressive win, but it's not like Georgia. I kind of with you. Actually, I didn't even think about
honestly, it puts them in a bit of a bad spot, to be very frank. Like, let's say USC wins or Michigan runs it, or like there's some situations now that, again, I think Alabama, if they take care of business against Auburn, to me should be no brainers. I think there's like a world where, frankly, you could see Alabama get really, really hosed right now.
You think if Michigan beats Ohio State, do they jump a 2-loss Michigan with a win against Ohio State versus a 2-loss Alabama? Who's getting into the play? That's a great question.
I mean, honestly, the way they're like ranking these wins right now and the way they're valuing late wins, I'd argue it feels like Michigan would have a really good case.
And they would, because look, if you beat Ohio State, which is just everybody's number one team in the country, it's kind of hard to leave that team.
And frankly, I'd find it extraordinarily unfair if I'm Alabama, because I look like Alabama's a better football team than Michigan, if we're being perfectly honest. Honestly, I'd probably say the same thing about USC. Like, Alabama, to me, better football team than USC. I think the USC loss isn't as big of a deal because Oregon will fall out and they'll kind of keep their place. But a Michigan running the gauntlet or a Miami being really
Michigan running the gauntlet, aka just beating Ohio State. Because we play, I don't know if Maryland's a gauntlet.
You're right. It's not a gauntlet, but Ohio State makes it a gauntlet to an extent.
All right. What about Texas got dropped to 17? And that was another interesting storyline, was how hard and how low was the committee going to drop Texas? Well, they drop them to 17. And now the question is, Dill, is that too much to overcome? Can beating Texas A&M at the end of the year give Texas another chance to get back in to the college football playoff field?
No, I think the way they were dropped, and I think they deserve it. I don't think you can go get get your brains beaten in, for lack of better terms, and like then be a 3-loss team and still get in. I think Texas, to me, at the end of the day, they just haven't played very good football. Like, they, to me, don't feel like a playoff team. And I know they've had some decent moments. By and large, this season's been relatively ugly, I'd say, for Texas. Like, close games against not particularly good
Coach
teams.
Sark would disagree. Coach Sark, I think he was.
That's a crazy statement to make, that they're underperforming. Like, they are very clearly underperforming. I don't really see a world. I think the committee did the right thing. I think they pushed Texas to a point where it's not going to matter. And I don't think
said this at this point last week, and that was, if you're going to be a 9-3 Texas team, it has to look right. Your loss to either Georgia or Texas A&M has to look right. In newsflash, the loss to Georgia did not look right. And I also think you're fair by saying, look, just eyeball test it. Does Texas feel like a playoff team? They might look like a playoff team on their paper. That they're not, and they don't play like one, right? You don't trust their quarterback play. Arch Manning wasn't even that bad against Georgia, but I still don't trust the quarterback play. The sample size we've gotten has been a lot more bad than good. Though their offensive line it's not a playoff offensive line. And then the defense. The defense is good. I ain't going to get up here and say the defense is bad, but it ain't elite like we was going to be back in August. Gunnar Stockton threw for 4 touchdowns, ran 1 and 2, scored 35 points. That's an unnecessary shot at Georgia's offense that I think is really good. But what I'm trying to say is that Texas does not feel like a playoff team, and I'm happy the committee finally seemingly gets that. Drops them to 17. That seems really hard to make up that gap in the next 2 weeks. What I want to ask you now, Dill, the chaos scenarios. If you are a team like Miami and you need some teams to fall out of the field, and I'm asking you, hey, what's a team that's currently in the playoff field right now that you could see falling out? Who would that be?
Oklahoma has 2 very losable football games, if we're being perfectly honest. I think they maybe didn't jump as high as I maybe would have liked to see them. Like, I think they have an argument to be above Oregon, and now I think Oklahoma's sitting there. I don't think 3 losses gets them in this thing. I would have thought, frankly, on the outset, if they beat Alabama, 3 losses might be okay. But I look where they have kind of Miami and some of these teams nipping at the heels a little bit. I don't think Oklahoma gets in with 3 losses.
Oklahoma is the one that concerns me the most too. Agree.
And they're
Oklahoma's got,
beatable because they're playing offense at a level that makes them extraordinarily beatable.
yeah, right. And I look at the schedule and say that this Missouri game coming up, that would concern me, right? And it concerns me for a couple different reasons. One, that Missouri defense is very, very good at all three levels. How much do I trust John Mateer and this Oklahoma offense, the way they're playing, to consistently move the ball against that Missouri defense? Now, with Missouri's ability to run the football, when you play defense the way Missouri plays it, when you run the football the way Missouri runs it, you have a chance to go on the road in this conference and win. And I'm kind of with you right now. I like Oklahoma, and I think that defense is as legit as it gets.
I think you spend too much time talking about Missouri. I think LSU is a much more dangerous matchup. I think LSU, again, they are a very flawed team. Their defense, I think, can still at times really get after it, and they at least have weapons right now.
Missouri's can too.
No, I know, but I just don't think Missouri's offense has any real meaningful path to scoring a whole lot against Oklahoma. I think LSU, like, they can at least create some big plays potentially, and I'm not saying it's particularly likely, but I think to me LSU is the more dangerous game. Now, they're both dangerous because they both can play defense and really drag it into the mud, I think. But I think LSU to me is more dangerous.
Yeah, either one of them, right? It's like if your offense is not going to allow you to pull away in these football games, you're going to be in a fourth quarter game against Missouri. You have a chance to be in a fourth quarter game against LSU, and
Aiden Flea doesn't feel like it's going to get it done sitting there at the 8th seed. Maybe if they were like 4 or 5, maybe you could talk about them being 8-3 and getting in. I don't think it's going to get in right now. Where they slot.
I'll give you the other team that maybe concerns me a little bit in terms of chaos scenarios. Alabama at 10. I think they're a lock. I don't think they're going to get jumped.
I think you're nuts for thinking they're going to lose to Auburn.
Auburn's been in football games with every single team they've played this year. You don't think Auburn can be in a game with Alabama? Hey, Dill, here's what I'm going to tell you right now is the same problems that Oklahoma gave Alabama at times, Auburn can present those same problems, right? They stop the run. Alabama has struggled to stop the run. They got to go on the road and play an Auburn team that can get after the passer. Do I trust Auburn to win that football game? I don't know, but I also have a question mark about how Alabama responds to that loss at home. Auburn has been in it with every single team they've played because they have the roster to be in it with a team like Alabama. In a rivalry game, like, I don't think Alabama's cakewalking through that game against Auburn. And that is Jordan-Hare Stadium, correct?
Yes, it is definitely Jordan-Hare. That we'll see. I don't know. I like Alabama there. To me, and this is an interesting. I don't know that well, unless this is saying that the Rebels are a team that could be a chaos agent. Like, I think this is correct to say Ole Miss to me feels like a more dangerous team in the playoffs than Oklahoma because I think Ole Miss, the way they're playing on offense, makes them a problem. I like Oklahoma's defense for sure, but you got to be able to score the ball. I think Ole Miss to me feels like a lock though to the playoffs. Like, there is no question.
So here's my question, and this is just kind of a silly question, but it's kind of a real question. What happens if Lane Kiffin takes the Florida job?
They're getting in the playoffs, though. I just don't see how you could possibly keep them out. It's like the players make
Florida State. I would have said the same exact thing about Florida State 2 years ago. No way you keep out an undefeated ACC champ from the college football playoffs. Well, they didn't have Jordan Travis. The committee deemed them a different version of Florida State, dropped them out of the playoffs. We've seen the committee do something like that. And Lane Kiffin, I'd argue, as a play caller, in-game coach, pretty damn important to Ole Miss's success on the football field. I would hate it. I just don't think it'd be fair to the Ole Miss players who earned the right to be in the playoffs. But hey, the committee don't care about what I think. And we've seen the committee make this kind of decision. I don't think they'll do it, but I do think it'll
be a really kind of unfortunate situation at the end of the day. It'd be just brutal. Because again, like Ole Miss, they played so well, I feel like, and so consistent and been at a level that I think you're seeing so much fluctuation, I feel like, with teams week to week. I don't really see that with Ole Miss. I think they've been really, really steady, and that matters, I feel like, a lot to me.
Do you think South Carolina's locked up if they win out? Or excuse me, USC. Yeah, 100%. right? And it also would kind of screw the boys as Michigan fans a little bit, right? Because if USC gets up there, like USC's going to the playoffs if they beat Oregon and win out, right? Michigan's not jumping USC with their head-to-head loss and how it looked, even if they beat Ohio State. Yeah, I think so. I got to stop doing that. I think USC is 100% a lock to make the college football playoffs.
I would agree. Having said that, I don't think it necessarily matters that much to Michigan. I think Michigan's pretty much in full control because I think they can jump a lot of teams. I think they can jump Alabama with that win. I think they can jump Notre Dame. I think they can jump almost anyone in that 9 to 10 kind of range, or the Big 12 teams if they take care of business against Ohio State. It's the best win anyone's got on the season by a mile.
Okay, this question is Miami just has to win out. I think I disagree with that. I think Miami will need some help. But again, back to how we started this, the committee did tell us that they're taking note of how Miami looks, right? Miami looked like one of the best teams in the country against NC State. If you can look that way against Virginia Tech, if you can look that way on the road against Pitt, we'll see. Dill, I guess I'll ask you, do you agree with that sentiment? Like the way Miami looks, if they look like how we talked about them in the month of September, what do you think Miami's chances of winning out and getting into playoffs are?
I don't think it's in their control. I think they have a decent shot because, again, I do feel like there's very much chances for teams to, like, again, Oklahoma and Alabama feel – I'm not as much on the Alabama train, but I certainly can see it. I think, like, again, those Big 12 teams, I think Miami can just straight jump them with really good wins because that's another – I saw that comment earlier, and I'm not going to go dig back up and find it, but I saw someone put in, like, do they jump the Big 12 loser? Because that feels like kind of a hinge point.
I think it's how
I think they should.
Yeah, me too. I think we're about to say. I apologize.
I think you got to win the Big 12 to get in. I don't believe a Big 12 non-conference champion should be in this thing.
I'll say this: if BYU sees Texas Tech once again in the Big 12 championship, and that game looks very similar to how it looked in Lubbock a couple of weeks ago, I wouldn't put BYU in. And Dill, it has a lot to do with making that mistake last year. And the committee did that last year, putting SMU in, even though they didn't feel like they deserved it. They didn't really have that playoff win, but they had a pretty looking record, and they went to the ACC championship game. I really do think we should be giving those spots to the teams that have shown us on the football field that they're playoff caliber. Miami has shown us that. Now, they've been a little bit more inconsistent than you would like, but they have showed us that that they are capable. That Dill, here's the thing with Miami, man. They're not only capable of being a playoff caliber team. Like, you get Miami's best football in the playoffs, they can bang with anybody and have a shot at winning a national championship because they're built like that. They're built good enough along the line.
Yeah, no, I don't think you can say that at all about Utah, BYU, Vandy, like those type teams. I just don't think they have that. They don't have that gear that Miami has.
There was another most intriguing. This is a fun one because Dill, what I want to ask you right now is, okay, not only the most intriguing first round game, which I think is so obviously Notre Dame going on the road to Norman, Oklahoma, like fire me up for that football game in so many different ways. Who wins it all? Like after all this chaos that we've seen, where we sit right now, and I said, hey, you got to give me the winner of the college football playoffs. Who's going to win the national championship? What would your answer be to that question?
I hate to say it, but until it's proven otherwise, it feels like Ohio State to me. I just think they're so complete that what really concerns me is I don't really see a great avenue to stopping that offense. Like that passing attack with those wide receivers and the way Julian Sayin can kind of operate the thing, it's such a problem in their defense, especially in their back end, like their linebackers and secondary, best units in football probably, or best units in college football, I'd probably argue. I don't know until I see them show any sort of vulnerability, frankly, on the field, because even Texas, I know they didn't run through them. They controlled that game in a very significant way all game. Like, I think they played, I don't want to call it scared because I think that'd be an unfair way to frame it. They kind of did the bare minimum of what they needed to do and keep that thing from getting a little wonky, if you will, by a turnover or something crazy. But they never felt threatened by Texas. To me, Ohio State, like no one's really shown a path to making them a game or giving them a game, I should say. Everyone else,
I think Ohio State's Ohio State is the chalky pick, and I wouldn't argue with that. There's a reason they're the odds-on favorite to win. Are you a little bit concerned about the lack of run game? Like when you get into the playoffs and you can't run the football against a Georgia front seven, you have to drop back 40 times in that football game. Last year, Ohio State could run the football, and they could kind of hide the teams that struggle, and we're seeing that because Alabama is so good, and that passing attack is so good. But when you see them play really, really good front sevens, and they struggle to run the football, and they got to drop back and throw the football 40-plus times, and these elite caliber edge rushers, of which you will see in the playoffs, can get after it, that's my concern for Ohio State. They probably would be my pick too, though.
But the problem is, like, they've played decent front sevens, and it hasn't really mattered.
Can I offer one that is just intriguing? I want to see what Oregon looks like this weekend against USC. That is a team that I could sell you on Oregon winning a national championship really quickly. It's the best rushing attack statistically, but it also checks out when you watch these games. They run the football better than anybody in the country. They work play action with Dante Moore at an elite level. If they get Evan Stewart and DeCorey Moore back healthy in the playoffs, that verticality in that passing attack will be legit. They have a quarterback that can do it. Defensive line's been defensive line is getting better, and Bear Alexander is finally hitting his stride. And Bill, here's the real difference between Oregon last year and Oregon this year. Last year, Oregon had, and this is going to be mean to a guy like Jabbar Muhammad, and I apologize. Jabbar Muhammad, 5'9", like 4.55 guy in the 40-yard dash. And we had him running down the field with guys like Jeremiah Smith. Like, they just didn't have the dudes. They had solid defensive backs. They didn't have dudes. This year they do. Like Ifeoma Badegu, Brandon Finney as a true freshman. They have guys to deal with wide receivers at Ohio State, or the wide receivers you might see against USC this weekend. If Oregon finds their stride, and I'm interested to see what this team looks like against USC, that's a team that I think can be extremely dangerous in the college football playoffs.
Yeah, and again, I would certainly tend to agree with you. My issue, frankly, it's been more on the offensive side. Like, they just have had way too much inconsistency and almost like lack a little bit of an identity. Like, it felt like in the middle of that season, they didn't want to like lean into being a power run team. To me, that if they can get into it and like really just lean on what they do, I think that'd go a long way in making them more consistent on that side of the ball.
I'm guessing this is pertaining to Oregon. I think this is fair. You know, I think Oregon's defensive backs have looked awesome. They also were tested a little bit against Indiana. They lost
a little bit. I think that's a little disrespectful to Indiana's passing attack. No,
yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair. I guess what I'm trying to say is they haven't seen the best wide receivers in the country so far, and you're about to see two of them this weekend again. That's why I said, hey, I'm 6 days away from really buying stock. I've always been buying stock in Oregon. I think they're a really good team. I want to see how it looks against USC this weekend. If it looks right, I think that Oregon team can do. They have the best offensive line in the country, and I firmly believe that when you want to make a run in the playoffs, go look at the teams that have made runs in the playoffs in the past, the line of scrimmage teams. Miami, we're getting a lot of Miami. Any other talking points you want to get into here?
Do you think Georgia deserves to be 4? Because I think they're rounding into a absolute monster, and
we can talk about Georgia.
Georgia, to me, if one of these teams drop a game, like the deeper they've gotten into this year, the more I think they're a legit threat now. Like, and I don't 100%. Even know if like
Dill, I have them. I had this question scheduled to you, and that's who's going to win it all. And I expected you to take Ohio State, so I had some teams that I thought were interesting. Georgia's one of them. And Georgia intrigues me for a couple of different reasons. As they are getting healthier on the offensive line, that run game has picked up. Gunnar Stockton has shown us that is a quarterback that can make a run in the college football playoffs. They hit on their other. Why did Georgia not make a run last year? They just didn't have dudes on the outside. Like, you need the ability to manufacture explosive plays. They didn't have that ability last year. Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas, getting from the tight ends. I'm still a little I'm still waiting on the Georgia defense that I know and love. but it started to show up against Texas. If
I
they
mean,
get
they
that
were
right,
like physically imposing
yeah,
themselves, and we haven't seen them physically impose themselves on the defensive side. To me,
yeah.
I've always kind of been a believer the offense has kept them in this season. If we're going to be completely frank about it, their defense has been really disappointing, or at least had been. Last 2 weeks, they've started to show some flashes of dominance. Like you've seen some of those young defensive ends play really good football, and you weren't really seeing that earlier in the year. That to me is really what's rounding Georgia into a problem is their defense is playing more vintage Georgia, like really kind of beating teams up.
USC is battle tested.
It's fair.
I actually, yeah, a 100% is. My concern about USC is dealing with that Oregon ground attack. We've seen when USC plays teams that want to, and it's frustrating if you're a USC fan because you've seen versions that look at like when they played Michigan. I'm as a Michigan fan, I'm like, oh, we're going out to the Coliseum. We're running the football like the best team in the country right now. We're gonna run the football on USC. We're gonna win that football game, and we didn't. And USC was creating some negative plays and kind of getting Michigan a little bit in those uncomfortable down and distances. The problem is we've also seen versions of that USC front seven where you don't totally see that, right? Like against Notre Dame, they just got moved around in the first half against Iowa. I mean, the Iowa game's the perfect example. In the first half against Iowa, they really were getting moved around. In the second half, they pitched shutout. Like, can you go on the road and hold your own and stop Oregon's ground attack? It's the biggest storyline in this game. If they can go on the road and do that, they're going to have a chance. Ain't no doubt about
And I thought again, you've seen them honestly wake themselves up a little bit in these second halves here, especially lately. To me, like you get a more consistent like 4 quarters of defense, USC can be really good. I was very impressed with what they did in that second half against an Iowa team that's run the ball really well on a lot of really good defenses. To me, it's really about them being able to put 4 quarters together, maybe a little bit more consistently than they have.
when it's all said and done, you think Miami, the committee will jump Miami over Utah and BYU?
I certainly hope so. And I feel like we've talked about that. Like they have to. It's just like I don't want to see Utah and BYU. I don't personally find them to be particularly great teams. Miami, they're like they'll play anybody and it'll be really fun. Miami is a team that can bang with anyone in the country. Again, like they certainly have their problems. They make a ton of mistakes that are wildly frustrating. And maybe BYU and Utah don't exactly do that, but they can get to a gear that it just like it'd be at least fun. Like they're capable of winning a national championship. Those other two, definitely not.
Yeah, it's one of the questions is you. I think you said it right. I just don't know how competitive BYU because we just saw BYU against what I think is a playoff caliber team in Texas Tech, and they
And
couldn't really
even if you
do
just look at
anything.
the box score, it was a much worse game than like BYU
Oh,
could have lost like 50-0 if we're
yeah,
being honest. Like that's how dominant it was for Texas Tech.
I agree. Any other takes that you want to get off your chest here?
Aside from that, I will die on the hill of the Big 12 champion is the only Big 12 team to get in, and I would certainly be really disappointed to see 2 of them in. I think everything else honestly kind of came in the way I'd expect. I think they did the right thing with Texas. They kind of took them out of contention. I think that's kind of where it should be. I'm a little
I
I saw a comment, frankly, if 2 lost Miami versus 2 lost Notre Dame, I don't really see Miami being able to jump
I
them,
don't think
but
they're
I
going to
do
jump
think that's
Notre
really
Dame. Yeah.
disappointing.
Well, okay. I guess here I'll present you a last minute scenario before we get out of here. What if Miami goes on the road and beats Pitt in a little bit of a different way than Notre Dame did? And Notre Dame handled their business. Do you
How
think?
much worse could you beat Pitt than what
Yeah,
Notre Dame did to him? I felt like it's pretty good drubbing.
yeah. I think that's fair.
But I
I
do
think
think, like, if you're gonna have 2 losses, and again, Notre Dame's losses are quite a bit better, but Miami's wins are
yeah.
also, on the other hand, a lot
This is
better
where
too, so
this is maybe where we'll drop out. Is I couldn't agree more with this, and I don't mean to be a G5 hater.
oh, I mean it.
It
I
it
mean
I agree with the fact that last year it made sense to put Boise State in. They looked like a playoff team. They had one of the best players in the country. You wanted to see them get a shot. There should be some sort of, and I wonder if this comes about after this year, because it is, to me, it's very obvious that there's just not. I mean, like right now it would be Tulane. Like Tulane got shellacked earlier in the season by Ole Miss. There should be at least a base rank. Like G5 team can get into the playoffs if they crack the top 20 or crack the top 16, I believe. Something like that. Because right now we're about to put a G5 team in that I don't think stands a chance to win a game in the college football playoffs. And we're going to leave out a team like Miami, or we're going to leave out a team like Vanderbilt. And that, to me, I'd rather see Miami get that shot, because I think Miami can win those games. That's probably the best way to end it. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Maybe the boys will try to be a little bit more organized. I get a little sidetracked with all the questions, and I want to dive into them. We'll try to be a little bit organized on next Tuesday night. I think I'll be in the Sunshine State when we're doing it next. Sweet. All right. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we will talk to you guys later. Peace.